verses is something she pointed out about us resisting temptation or sin to the point where we are sweating blood. Like, Jesus resisted that much. So,
that's in when he was fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, right?
No, that's in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Anyways, so he was trying to resist temptation.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that would have been that he was trying to resist the temptation to not go through with what he had to do.
Yeah, to die on the cross and like realize and like it wasn't even, I don't even think that it was like the death that was the worst thing, because man, did I say this no, I said this. Okay, so there's a song, I'm gonna link it in the description. It talks about and heaven looked away, and I think that was one of the greatest.
Being left alone.
Yeah, one of the greatest, the hardest parts of Jesus going through everything was that he literally was in perfect harmony. I mean, he is God. He was in perfect harmony with the Father, and to be completely separated from him by death on a cross and taking with him all of our guilt and shame and sin that he bore. I mean, it was like Adam and Eve sinning all over again in the garden. I bet you that's kind of what it felt like, but worse, because he bore all of humanity on the cross, and Adam and Eve bore their own sin, going from perfect harmony with God to eating the apple to afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, it was like the same, except that he did nothing wrong, so he's cleansing us of that first act.
He is the pure lamb that was sacrificed for us.
Yeah.
So our things today is peaceful fruit of righteousness, which comes in verse 11. I'm going to read that real quick. Which says, "For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it." So if you're a parent, or if you have a parent, then you've seen that they have disciplined you in one way or another, and that they're doing it because you don't understand why you're not supposed to be doing something, but they do, and they see the lasting effects of it, so they're trying to stop you and help you understand now that you shouldn't be doing that, because if you continue doing it, you will end up with really bad consequences. For example, like running in the middle of the street. Okay, everyone has to teach their children, you do not run into the middle of the street. Okay, it may be okay once or twice, you may be lucky and there's not any cars, but if you keep doing it and not paying attention to what's around you and whatnot, you're gonna get hit by something. And so your parents, or you as a parent, have to teach your child with love, you know, don't run into the street. Like, you just can't do that without looking at your surroundings. And so that's something that you have to teach. So that's God teaching us, like, don't do this. Like, I guess the one that's off the top of my head is don't have sex before marriage, because, like, yeah, maybe you'll be okay this once, but you don't understand the depth of what sex is, and sex is supposed to be in marriage. But, you know, he's telling us don't have sex before marriage, and we're like, no, we'll be fine. But then you don't see what it actually affects and how many different people are affected by it.
Yeah, that car could be coming from you that you don't see. Like, you could end up getting pregnant, and then that completely alters. Like, that could be the car hitting you, you know, or you could get a disease. You know, like, there's so many things. That's just a metaphor, but it's like the car is coming, and God's trying to warn you that the car is coming. So it may not seem pleasant at the time you being disciplined for something, but it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for you. So
yeah, and because
it's worth it.
Eventually trust, there would be that trust built between you and your Father, and in this case, you know, us and the Father God, you know, we have to build that trust. Like, obviously he is there's no reason not to trust him because he's so faithful. But like we still as humans are trying to like work that and he's disciplining us, being like, you need to do this, you need to do this. And his grace, man, he will get you that he'll make sure you learn it.
And so one thing that I learned in the study that I'm pulling some of this information from is that when you're harvesting and you're pruning stuff, it can affect the harvest up to 2 years later. So something that God does in your life now could be affecting you years down the road, and you'll never know. You know, like store up in your heart things that he tells you, because it might not be for just that moment. It might be for something that's coming, that he's like, hey, watch out for this. I'm about to do this. And God's time is so different from our time. So
yeah, like on the negative side, it has said that, you know, if you do something, some kind of sin, that it can go down to third generation, which is like your great grandchildren, great grandchildren, right? And you know, if you want to steward your time well and bear good fruit, and you know, that inheritance to them, a godly life, like you want to make sure you do everything you can so that you're not passing down anything that's horrible, and that you put a stop to anything that anyone above you in your what is it called? Genealogy. That was, you know, obviously not paying attention, but then that you put a stop to that and you start to produce good fruit for your generations to come.
Because God blesses to the fifth, curses to the third, and blesses to the fifth. So work hard to break those curses, because God's going to produce a harvest for many years to come. And if you have a weakness in all of this, just be reminded that God is faithful. He helps us in our weakness. Go back and read your verses for day 1. He cannot be faithless to himself, and we bear him. We are the image of Christ. We are a lion, the daughter of a lion. And he says that God cannot be he can't forsake us, because he's faithful to himself, and he's in us. So just don't be afraid to ask for his help, and keep your gaze on him and off of yourself and your failings, and focus on him and his goodness and his faithfulness.
Yeah, there's definitely no story, no life that is too far gone for his grace. If you think that your life is too great of a sin or whatever that he can't redeem you, then you don't understand how big his grace is. Like, his grace abounds, is never ending. And the more and more I study the word and hear about all these stories, awesome stories and stuff, like, his grace can do anything. Like, he is amazing, and his grace is never ending.
One cool thing I heard about that is that, so the way we see ourselves is we see ourselves in certain spaces and time, and like where we are now in our brokenness and stuff. But God, since he's outside of time, he sees us as complete and perfect, the end result, and he's just helping us get there. So like, if you think you're unlovable, but you surrender yourself to God and let him change you, you can get to the perfect image that he knows you can be. And so
I also heard it one way where they were like, you think your story is too great for God. You think you're better than God, that he doesn't have enough grace to get to you. Like, you know, what makes you think you're better than God, and that you're like so horrible that he can't even get to?
Oh yeah, I was going to mention this in one of the days to come, but like, it's since I'm very much I like to control things, and I have a hard time letting someone else control it, because I feel like they won't get it right, or, you know, they'll mess it up. So God's been talking to me a lot in my life about giving him control, and the Isaiah 55, like, his thoughts and ways are, like, I want to plan it out for God and tell him, no, my plan's better. But he's like, no, blessing. I know better. And so I heard in the study is this, that we think that him who gives us all our wisdom and knowledge and planning, we think that we can plan better than him. And he's the one that gave us all of our abilities and desires. How is that? Why do we think we are so much better than him? He's the one who gave us that stuff. So.
There's so many verses that are popping in my head right now, but anyways,
we better save them for later.
We'll save it for later.
What is our lettering?
Our lettering today is peaceful fruit of righteousness. So,
go bear fruit, and you will bear righteousness. God will work in you, and he is doing great things.
And your light will shine to other people too. Even if you're just doing it for yourself or for your kids, it will shine to those around you if you make a decision today to make a choice to bear fruit for heaven rather than on earth. So anyways, don't forget to tag us, and she'll put the link for that song on.
Which song? Is that on this one?
Yeah, see you later.